Hello, welcome to another edition of Devlin's Mondo Nostalgia Radio Show. And if you pressed play and said, oh my God, 2 weeks in a row, I'm so excited, is this going to be a regular thing? Well, thank you for being excited, first of all. But don't get excited till it's about 2 months in a row, because I tend to start up and start off a lot. You know, I had a big run at the beginning. And then I've just been dealing with a lot of stuff. I won't get into that because anybody who's regular listeners knows I've been dealing with a lot of mental health issues and stuff like that. Just personal stuff. But hey, 2 weeks in a row, I guess that's something to be celebrated for. And thank you for pressing play and looking for a little bit of distraction of the craziness that's going on in the world. And just like last week, I'm just going to be talking about various things. Yes, even other stuff besides the big thing that everyone's talking about. Let's just get that out of the way right now. When I started Mondo Nostalgia, I knew there would be times that it would be a little awkward. Because, you know, when big stuff happens, like a 9/11 or something like that, a lot of people think, well, you know, why are you still doing a show that's kind of dedicated to entertainment news and talking about old stuff and that? But I've said in the past that I think nostalgia is important during those hard times because it's like comfort food in a lot of ways. And like when we lose people we love, what do we usually turn to? Comfort foods, shows from our past that made us smile. You know, we hit our music on our MP3s or on our computer or on our phones or on our records, and we play songs from the past usually because they're songs that just make us feel good. So when something big like this is happening, you know, I try not to talk about it too much because I'm not really a news-oriented station. I'm news as far as entertainment news goes, but unfortunately sometimes some big things happen in the world, and I've got to mention it. I don't want to come off as naive, although I am pretty naive when it comes to stuff like this. But there is a pandemic going around. It's been declared in many countries. Lots of stuff has been canceled, and just from last week, you know, we were just kind of all like, oh yeah, toilet paper's going off the shelves. And after only a week, we have seen so many big changes, like Italy closing down, like them literally, people can't go in and out of Italy. Today I heard that Europe is now in a state of, you know, they're watching everything because their cases have jumped 35% and stuff. Traveling's being canceled all over the world. They just, here in Canada, they've just announced the school closings for 3 weeks. So the March break is going from 1 week to 3 weeks. And what's making it even harder is parents are rushing around trying to find things. And even programs they planned for March break are gone now. Like they've canceled them too. As of me recording this, they have not stopped traveling from Canada. They've put an advisory as far as I know. But, you know, they're saying only travel if you absolutely have to. But I wouldn't even be surprised by the time this show airs, and I'm taping it a couple of days earlier than it is, I wouldn't be surprised if they do more than that. If they do ban traveling for a couple weeks. And it's sad because I do know some people that are, you know, heading, you know, for their first trips in years, and they may not make it, or they may make it, and, you know, I think that's scary. They're already saying if you were out of the country, when you come back, quarantine yourself for 2 weeks. Well, if you took time off work to do the thing, who can afford quarantining themselves for 2 weeks? You know, so a lot of us can't. But, you know, so lots going on with this, and it's only getting crazier. The toilet paper situation has gone right out of control. I talked about it a little bit on last week's episode. And since then, it's even gotten crazier. Like, grocery stores are just packed with people buying provisions now. They're running out of other stuff like hand sanitizers. I think those masks are gone. I've heard people say that things in the bean aisle have been gone, the flour aisle, And it's funny how social media kind of plays on that because I was talking to a lady today that she said, where does this all come from, this hysteria? And I go, well, a lot of it is social media and news. It's just, they're trying to keep things positive, but as things get worse and we're hearing other countries closing things down and they're finding more and more cases of it, it's harder and harder to deal with. But what happens is you read about people, hoarding toilet paper, going out there, and then your mind just starts thinking, oh, that's ridiculous. But then, I won't lie to you, Mike was at a gas station, getting gas, and there was one package of 4-roll toilet paper. Now, we've already got some. I've been hoarding it for the last couple of days. No, I'm joking. I'm kidding. We just had some that we already had. But Mike saw that they had one thing left, and he bought it. And I didn't laugh at him because I had totally got it, because I went to Denninger's thinking, oh, maybe I should get a couple of things, just in case, what if they close things down? So I bought, a couple of cartons of eggs and some, meats and stuff. And I'm thinking, it's funny how it can play on your mind. And it's getting out of control. Like, I'm hearing stores having to close. I've heard stores trying to restock. They're trying to limit supplies. But the saddest part of this all, and I won't get too heavy on this because I have lots of other things I want to talk about, although a lot of it has to do with the pandemic. And when you're dealing with stuff like, they closed Disneyland and Disney World. The NHL and the NBA have canceled their seasons. Broadway went dark. This is huge, and it's just going to get bigger and bigger. As I said, I'm recording this a couple of days before I post it, so I can only imagine what's happened since then. But the sad thing about this is, yes, I worry. I'm washing my hands. I've always washed my hands, but I'm washing them crazy now. I have a little tickle. I've been coughing, and of course, being the hypochondriac that I am, I'm already where's the thermometer? They're saying it's, people get coughs and stuff, but I get dry coughs quite a lot. Anybody who knows me knows. So I get a tickle now, and I've already, I got coronavirus, So it freaks me out, like everybody else. But the sad thing in all this is, yes, I have a fear of getting sick, but I'm actually sort of losing faith on humanity a bit. The fact that when I heard about the coronavirus, I was fearing for the people who could get it, and fearing the people who couldn't travel or who had to be isolated. Yet to see that there are people that all they're thinking about is themselves by, let's get as much toilet paper as we can. Let's take all the hand sanitizers. So people who maybe elderly or people with low immune systems can't get it because we got people hoarding it, people who probably won't get sick or aren't going to share. And I remember seeing stories about World War II and World War I, how countries came together and, you'd share with your neighbor or you'd do your best to make things last. And now to see our first instinct, and I say our as us as a humanity, I'm not joining myself into that club, but to hear people just kind of thinking about themselves and let's, have toilet paper all over the place, it kind of saddens me. I'm not depressed even, but I'm using a lot of mindfulness, and I'm using every, little thing I can to keep my mind staying in the positive. I have some good things going on, so that helps a lot too. But it is really scary because normally, if I was in a bad way, this could have put me in a really bad way. But Anyhow, so a lot of the stuff you're hearing is probably old news, but we're going to bring it up anyhow. Let's wrap up some of the stuff now that you heard of things. Hollywood, as I said, has canceled a couple productions of movies and stuff. I always say that a disease gets more serious when a name is attached to it. And after a couple of there was a John Travolta one, there was a Daniel Radcliffe one, it was actually announced that Tom Hanks and his wife Rita Wilson had coronavirus. And they were in Australia, where it's a lot easier to test for this, and they were tested positive for it. Now, they're quite healthy, and even though Tom is in his 60s and Rita's probably right there with him, they are very confident they're going to pull through this and stuff. And even their kids said that to see them, except for the cough and stuff, you wouldn't even really tell that they were sick. So that's how kind of scary this all is. But I think once Hollywood had someone that contracted it, and having a big A-list name like Tom Hanks, and his wife, Rita Wilson, it really, I think, pushed the panic buttons. But it's hard not to push the panic buttons when, the word pandemic is being used and countries are closing things off left and right. I can understand people being scared. Don't always understand the selfishness of it, but that. So Tom Hanks is expected to do a quite complete recovery with his wife, Rita Wilson. He just released a trailer. I don't know if that was planned, but he's got a new World War II movie coming out called Greyhound that actually looks really phenomenal. I like going to see war movies, but this one actually looked really good. It's coming out, I believe, at the end of June, I think, or July, somewhere in there. You can see the trailer on my Facebook page, Mondo Nostalgia. Got to hype that up a bit. I always recommend you check out my Mondo Nostalgia after you've listened to this, unless you go every day and check it out. And I'm happy to say I do have a lot of people that do go check it out every day, and that makes me smile a lot. But Greyhound is supposed to come out there, but will it is the question, because a lot of movies have moved. And studios, last week we talked about it, I believe, that James Bond and Peter Rabbit both moved their dates. James Bond went to November and Peter Rabbit went to August. But since that episode, we are also seeing Fast and the Furious 9 is moving a year to next April 2021. We're seeing movies like New Mutants, Mulan, a movie called Antlers. These are all being pushed, and they don't have dates just yet. A Quiet Place 2 also is getting pushed, and it looks like just a ton of movies. Hollywood wants these movies to do well. And it's interesting that Hollywood's really freaking out about this, which I think could be interesting in the next little while, because you might get movies that are going to be competing in places that they weren't going to before. So you're going to get some new movies that weren't going to be hits that could be hits, and then some movies that were supposed to be hits that might not be doing quite as well. And we'll have to see how the box office does, but it's expected, even with 3 new releases, Vin Diesel's I want to call it Bloodsport, but that doesn't seem right. Bloodshot, I think it is. Bloodshot. We'll go with that. Coming out this weekend, there's the KJ Apa film. I don't know the names of these. I haven't written any of these down. Anyhow, there's 3 movies coming down, and the other movie coming out is The Hunt, which is the one I want to go see. This was a movie that got put on the shelf because of a shooting last year, and now it is going to be pushed. It's pushed to this weekend, on a weekend where movie theaters are open, but there's not much that is going to play. So it'll be interesting to see how box office figures play out in this. And so we'll keep you up to date with what movies are going to be canceled. I'll be putting them up on Mondo Nostalgia, so keep track of it daily on Facebook, and I will keep you updated. The last thing I want to talk about coronavirus is a lot of St. Patrick's Day's parades have been canceled. I'm sure a lot of celebrations are going to follow. I'm not a big St. Patrick's Day follower. I'll usually wear green that day, maybe a St. Patrick's Day hat or something. I already have my nails painted green. They look lovely. But I'm sure people will have their own little private celebrations. Stay at home. I'm sure, I don't know, with toilet paper running out, I'm sure people are worried that alcohol is going to run out, so I'm sure they're going to do well too in the days ahead as well. So St. Patrick's Day, spend it alone. Facebook will have a lot of fun little St. Patrick's Day stuff the day before and the day of, so look out for that. I'll put some songs, maybe a little, see if I can find a cartoon or something, and just little fun stuff, as I always do. Anyhow, let's move on. Let's move on to happier topics. I've got a beverage here. I'm going to have a little partake because I don't want my tickle to cough and then everybody's going to say, Devlin Bishop's got coronavirus. I don't want a rumor like that. If it's true, so be it, but it's not. If you want to start a good rumor about me, maybe something with, Chris Hemsworth or Chris Evans or anybody like that. Start a rumor, that I'm seeing them secretly in a gay liaison. That'd be good. I'd like that. Jesse Lee Sofer from Chicago PD. He's one of my favorites right now. And he's like not a huge star, so, it'd be a good, credible thing for him to be like, oh, he's gay all of a sudden. Okay, don't out anybody. I'm just joking here. Have some fun. We have some news stories to talk about that are not to do with the coronavirus. Let's start with Kids in the Hall. Amazon announced that they are returning with an 8-episode, I believe, of their old show. They're going to do new episodes of their old sketch comedy show, which was a huge hit in Canada and then became a hit in the US and all over the world. And I remember watching Kids in the Hall. It was kind of a breakthrough show. It was kind of like our version of Monty Python. It was very absurd comedy, but Canada never had such a breakout hit with such absurd comedy. We've had absurd comedy before, but they used to be cult shows. But Kids in the Hall kind of made it to the mainstream. The thing that shocked me most about this news story is not necessarily that they're doing the show, but they got all 5 of the kids coming back. So we've got like Bruce McCullough, Dave Foley, Mark McKinney, Kevin McDonald, and Scott Thompson all returning back to do this awesome, groundbreaking Canadian show again. And I'm so happy. They reunited a couple of years ago for a mini-series called Death Comes to Town. Wasn't a big fan of it. I laughed at it for all the wrong reasons, but I'm going to give this a shot, absolutely. They said they're going to be bringing back some old characters, and I thought, how would that work with a couple of old guys playing, like the man with a cabbage for a head, or the chicken lady, or I'll crush your head. Buddy Cole, as an older gay gentleman who would sing. It'll be interesting to see. And one of Mike and I, we used to love Kids in the Hall, and we still watch episodes. I bought the complete series last year, and every once in a while we'll throw on an episode and have a good laugh. But sometimes we laugh even before the joke because we love seeing when they go into drag. And quite honestly, it's good stuff. And it's a lot of fun, and I look forward to seeing what they're going to come up with. And I'm very happy that they're all coming back because a lot of them have found degrees of success elsewhere. You know, Dave Foley's been on many TV shows. Same with Kevin McDonald. He's turned up in a lot of places. Mark McKinney, I know he was on that Superstore, which I thought was actually a really funny sitcom. Scott Thompson, I know he's been touring with Buddy Cole for a while, and I think Bruce McCullough, I hate to say it, I think he has done some live stage stuff, but I think he's the one that's retired the most. He was actually, it's hard to pick a favorite, because when I watch the old shows, I think they all have their charm, but I think Bruce McCullough was always my favorite. I don't know why. He was a little quirky, and he looked very adorable, and he still does. So I can't wait to see it. Are you excited about Kids in the Hall? Comment. Let me know what you think about them bringing them back. Maybe they'll bring back other, old comedy shows. I can't name any right now, but maybe they will. Mr. Show. I'd like to see some more Mr. Show. Do they even like each other? Are they in a feud or something? Little Britain was always good, too. I'm not going too far back because, obviously Carol Burnett, most of the people are dead except for a couple. And, Monty Python, I know, has lost quite a few people. In fact, recently, too. So, but anyhow, it's very interesting. So, yeah, wanted to talk about that a little bit. We did have a major death. There was a couple of deaths this week, but the one I'm going to talk about is the actor Max von Sydow. Very famous actor who died at the age of 90 this past week. And you might not recognize the name, but he was in a ton of movies, including The Exorcist, The Seventh Seal. He was in The Force Awakens, and in quite a few movies. I'm getting his IMDb up to show you some of his other big movies before I talk about the movie that I will remember him most for, and most of you who know me already are probably imagining what I'm going to talk about. He was also in the Greatest Story Ever Told. Other movies he was in, The Wolfman. He was in one of the 2010 version of Robin Hood. He also did some TV with the Tudors. I never know if I'm saying that right. A great Tom Cruise movie, Minority Report. See some of his earlier stuff. Strange Brew. I can't even be Canadian without mentioning he was in Strange Brew. And, well, not all of them were winners, but some of us like Ice Pirates. Anyhow, he was in a ton of great stuff. But the movie I will remember most for, Exorcist definitely is up there. And I have to say Strange Brew. I'm not the biggest Strange Brew fan, but I get a little heartwarming tingle when I think of Bob and Doug McKenzie. But the movie that he will be remembered me for is Flash Gordon, the 1980 Sam J. Jones, Dino De Laurentiis cult classic of all time. One of my all-time favorite cult classics, and of course he played Ming the Merciless, and I just love this performance. It's just over the top, but not too over the top, and it's an exciting movie. It's a lot of fun. It's goofy, it's crappy, but you know what? He is so good in it. And he camps it up nicely, but not too much. He actually plays it fairly serious, which is surprising, but also kind of endearing, too. But we lost a tremendous star. Max von Sydow passed away this week. And, since, some of you are probably not going to be trekking out too much, maybe grab one of those old movies and check him out and pay tribute to a wonderful actor. And another one who died at age 90. I was last week going on about all these people dying in their 90s, I got to start, getting fit again, possible? Is it possible I could make it to 90? We'll have to wait and see. Just a few more things to talk about. I'm trying to stretch the show out, but I decided to do the show a little earlier because I've got company coming this weekend. My nephew is coming for a visit, and and I always look forward to when he comes and stuff. So it'll be good. So I thought I'd try to get this out early so I could have one for you Sunday, because if I wait till Sunday, I'll probably be I don't want to do a podcast. I'm so tired. So I decided I was ready to do it. So no more whining. Let's just do it, have fun with it, and go to town. On Mondo Nostalgia, the day I posted my return episode 166, I also decided to start posting questions. And this week I asked, what cartoon show did you used to not want to miss? And I left it open, even though, I think most people went right to their childhoods for it. The two I picked, if you missed it, were the Flintstones, which I used to run home from school because Channel 13 used to air it at noon, and I'd watch the Flintstones, and then Agri-News would come on, which is like agricultural news, where they tell you pig prices and chicken prices and stuff like that. And I always knew as soon as the Agri-News came on, I had to run my ass back to school or I was going to be late. But I never missed the Flintstones. I watched the Flintstones for a good chunk until Leave It to Beaver started airing on CKVR, and I started watching that because I'd seen probably every Flintstone episode 3 or 4 times by then. But anyhow, it was a great memory. And the other one I put was whenever there was a Peanuts special, whether it was Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter, Valentine's Day, New Year's, I was there in front of the TV. I used to love any Peanuts special. I loved seeing Charlie Brown and Snoopy, and my mother used to make this stew, and all it was really gravy and potatoes. And it wasn't my favorite. So I would always, she'd always, call it Charlie Brown soup. And she'd just crush up the potatoes, and it was just kind of like thick gravy, and I would eat it because I was so obsessed with the Peanuts. So that's how they would manipulate. Like, that's how my parents would manipulate me to eat, by naming things after Peanuts characters. And I would think, oh, Charlie Brown must eat this as well, or Snoopy or something. But I never missed an episode, and now I have a lot of Peanuts on DVD, and I crank it out a lot. Especially the holiday ones. I love it. I'm excited that Easter's coming up. It's a weird one. Most of them are weird, except for the Christmas one. But I like the weirdness of it. I don't know. I just like the whole Easter Beagle angle. Yeah, it's interesting. So I still love the Peanuts. But I was interested, and I got a lot of responses from people, and I was surprised that a lot of people... I don't know why I'm surprised, because it was a huge show, and it played for a long, long time, but a lot of people put the Bugs Bunny Roadrunner Hour, and it came in lots of forms, but Looney Tunes cartoons... A lot of people said that Bugs Bunny was, you had to see it. And I liked him too. And I still watch the Looney Tune cartoons to this day. Like, what's not to love about them? We're talking, Bugs Bunny. We're talking Roadrunner, Tweety and Sylvester, Porky Pig, Daffy Duck, Foghorn Leghorn. Nobody gives him enough love. Pepe Le Pew. Okay, some of those are a little creepy now, but, that's still funny stuff. We had a sense of humor back then, And so, I love checking out the old Looney Tunes still. And it was nice to see that people put that. Other people shared the same memories of the Flintstones, too. It was like, oh, yeah, I used to come home at lunch and watch the Flintstones, which was awesome because I knew other people must have. They weren't showing it if they weren't, but they wouldn't show them if nobody was watching them. But it was nice to see other people had memories of running home to catch the adventures of Fred and Wilma and Barney and Betty and Bam Bam and Pebbles and Dino and Hoppy and all those great characters. And yeah, I think people still enjoy the Flintstones. And a little knowledge that some people might not know is the Flintstones was actually the first adult cartoon show that actually played in prime time. And we're talking it was the predecessor to The Simpsons and Family Guy and King of the Hill and South Park. And if you watch the early episodes of the Flintstones, you can tell it's a little more edgy. A lot of people felt that when Pebbles showed up, they went more to a family comedy. It was actually really based on the Honeymooners, to the point where Jockey Gleason noticed it and was thinking about suing them. And apparently, from what I've read in a story, the lawyers said, "Are you really sure you want to be the person who sues the Flintstones?" So that, and the fact that Jackie Gleason actually thought it was a pretty good ripoff of the Honeymooners, that he thought, yeah, no, he doesn't want to be the guy who sued the Flintstones. And eventually the show became a little bit different than Honeymooners. As I said, when they had Pebbles and Bam Bam, it became more of a family-oriented show. So really interesting stuff there. A lot of Transformers lovers, too. Which was nice to see. I never got into the Transformers. I've tried to watch that cartoon show, and it just never did it for me. I was more of a G.I. Joe, Jem and the Holograms, two separate shows there. And I have to say that when G.I. Joe and Jem came out, I was probably a little too old for them, but that didn't stop me from watching them. And then there was a couple of other ones people mentioned. A shout out to one, I can't remember who mentioned it, but it was somebody who said Battle of the Planets. And Battle of the Planets was an old Japanese anime show, which I believe was one of the first ones that was adapted to American TV. And I remember it was something on at Saturday night at 6:30 or something. And I used to watch this, and I loved that somebody mentioned it, and I actually put the intro that you can catch. And I found out on YouTube you can actually see full episodes if you want. It was called Science Ninja Team Gatchaman, and it was out in 1972. And then it was repurposed as Battle of the Planets, and they aired it. And what was weird is that they took the 105 original Gatchaman episodes, and 85 of them were used in Battle of the Planets adaptations. They actually had to eliminate a lot of the graphic violence and profanity because they made it a kids show. And they cut a lot out. And when I actually saw my first Gatchaman, it was weird seeing these characters that I knew and loved, and they were doing very adult type things. And I'm like, wait a minute, this was such an innocent thing. They had to cut so much out that they actually created this robot character that was Seven Zark 7. His name was, and this little dog, I think it was, Keop. And they added that because they just had to cut out so much that there wasn't enough for even a 24-minute episode. So thank you for whoever said Battle of the Planets, because that gave me a great memory. I love that show too. Probably the first anime I ever saw, probably the first anime a lot of us of that generation saw for the first time. And I'm glad to say I have a couple of episodes on DVD that they did release some early on. And some of them actually featured the actual version. And when I saw the original, as I said, it was a little bit shocking. But I strongly recommend all those shows, especially if you're younger or or just want to relive your childhood, definitely can't do wrong with Bugs Bunny, the Flintstones, Peanuts. Scooby-Doo, I think, got some mentions too. I still love Scooby-Doo. Even though, watching the original Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? The mysteries are just like, I was always baffled as a kid, and sometimes there's only two characters that it could possibly be. And knowing me as a kid and mysteries, I probably always picked the other person when I should have picked, old man, Leary, and he would have got away with it if it wasn't for you crazy kids. Anyhow, great to go back. Check this weekend. I will have another question up sometime, probably around Sunday, and definitely answer it, and we'll talk about it on next week's episode, because I'm already guessing I'm going to do one, so that'll be exciting. I'm already very excited for that. Anyhow, I'm getting ready to wrap this up. I'm also a little bit afraid that this is going to cut out, because I think I'm, taping this on fumes right now, but we'll see. But I just have one more thing to talk about, and then we'll wrap up this episode. And this is a weird thing to talk about, but it's the group Weezer. Last year, it might even be 2 years ago, they released an album of what's the word? Covers. And I've been hearing some. So my work has been playing some. I've heard stuff like, it came out on January 24th, 2019, so just over a year. And they play Mr. Blue Sky, the ELO classic. And at first when I heard it, it drove me crazy, because I said, this has got to be a remake. This has got to be a remake. And it was. It was totally Weezer. I looked it up. And I'm starting to really like the song. When I first heard it, it says, I got to give them enough credit, because they did a great job with it. But then I was also kind of thinking to myself, do I like it or not? But the more I've heard it, I have liked it. I've also liked their take on Me. Some of the other ones aren't all that great, but Take on Me and Mr. Blue Skies are two really hard songs to recreate. They recreate them almost perfectly with just enough to give it their own sound. So I've decided I wanted to give a shout out for an album that's already a year old. And you should check out Weezer's Teal. Maybe check out on, some streaming sites that you go to, or even YouTube, to see what you think. And who knows, maybe I just sold a couple of Weezer downloads or CDs if people buy them anymore. But anyhow, check it out, especially Mr. Blue Sky. I really like what they did with him. Took me a couple of listens to really appreciate it, but I like it. I like it a lot. Enough that I gave it its own part in this week's episode. And that is this week's episode. I am glad I got one in. And I am so thankful for you if you press play and made it all the way to the end. I know sometimes talking about pandemics and stuff like that, it's not always the greatest to hear. But I got through it. I did it. It's all good. Now go listen to some Weezer or watch some Max von Sydow. I know you're dying to grab Strange Brew or Flash Gordon. I know. Exorcist won't get pulled, but you'll go watch Strange Brew or Flash Gordon. But anyhow, whatever you do, stay safe, wash your hands, just stay away from any bad stuff out there. I love you all, and I look forward to talking with you next time.